Hello folks, I'm in my 2007 Mark II Audi TT at the moment. The car is now officially up for sale. I'm asking £4,700 for it. That's not a negotiable price. I've got about 5 grand into the car myself. I spent 3,800 buying it. I've then spent about 1,200 quid on it since. Going to go through some of the things I've done to the car in this video. I'm going to take it for a little spin, and I'm also going to tell you about the issues with the car. I think if I had fully restored this car, I could probably get about 6.5 grand for it as a private sale. As it is, it owes me more than I'm asking for it, but I don't feel comfortable asking 5 grand for it. I think 4,700 quid is fair. I'm not losing too much money on it, and it gives the new owner of the car a little bit of wiggle room to actually get the things done themselves and maybe even make a profit on it. So the story behind this car that you don't know is that when I bought this car, I had a sponsor lined up. I actually had 2 sponsors lined up, but one in particular who I can't mention. It's a big insurance company. We're going to pay me 1,200 quid to do a series of 7 videos with this car. The second sponsor was going to sponsor the series on the Nürburgring. Okay, the road trip over there. It was a lot less money, but all told, I was going to have about 1,500 quid to put into this car. So I thought, okay, I've got £1,000 to do the car up to a good standard, and then 500 quid to do my trip over to Germany to cover petrol, hotels, Eurotunnel, all that sort of stuff. And then at the end of it, I'll sell the car for basically what I put into it. Now, they wouldn't agree to anything until I bought the car. So I bought the car. A couple of days later, sent them the images of the car, and they said, due to the recession, we're not sponsoring any more social media content for basically a year. As you know, I've been made redundant twice in the last 6 months. So at that point, I'm left with a car that I've now got to pay for myself to put back to a decent standard. I suppose I could have just sold it on immediately for what I paid for it, but I just wouldn't want to put my name to something that was in quite the state it was in. So I'd already half decided that I wouldn't completely finish the car. I'd probably get to the point of doing most of the major bits, so everything at least worked, and then get to move the car on. I've gone a little bit further than I thought, because the electrical issues went from something that I thought possibly might take 30 pence to correct, something that's taken about 550, 600 quid to correct. And to add on insult to injury, last week I got a tax bill from HMRC from 2019, when I was a PAYE employee. That year I paid 40 grand in tax, by the way, asking me for a further 7 grand. I've spent 3 days on the phone with HMRC, and we've got that down to a far more manageable 3 grand now. But having not had steady income aside from this and a little bit of consultancy work in the last few months, I literally need to turn this into money as soon as possible. And any dreams I had of doing a little road trip with it just now are over. The other thing is, our lease car goes back soon, our VW Touran. I haven't got a job at the moment, so we won't be able to get another lease car. So I need to buy a new family car. I've got all these drains on my resources at the moment, not much resources and not much income. So this just has to go. It's as simple as that. As I said, I'm asking 4,700 quid for the car. I'm not really going to take any less than 4,700 quid. I think it's a really good price. It's got hours and hours and hours of work into it. But I'm going to take you for a little walk around the car now. I'll show you the good bits, the bad bits, and be absolutely as honest as I can with everything. I understand that it's probably not going to be one of you that buys it, but I'll put a link to this video wherever I list the car for sale, and if anyone does show any interest, I'll send them this video, because it might save someone a trip, or someone might see it and think, oh God, I can do all that work myself, not a problem. So here we go. Okay, so let's take a walk around the car, and I'm going to point out all the faults as we go. So firstly, this front wing down here had a big kind of split in it there. It had lots of scuffing around here, had a little hole here. That's all been repaired. Now, I have done that repair myself, and I'm not a bodywork expert by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think I've done a bad job. I've sanded it all back, filled it, sanded it again, primed it, painted it and then lacquered it. I haven't done the best blend on the lacquer. You can see it in the right light. I don't know if this is the right light, but it's a hell of a lot better than it was, and it certainly takes your eye away from it. Most of the alloys are in reasonable nick. Someone has had a bit of paint on them at some point. You can see here there's a little bit of curbing. Nothing exceptional on that one. Couple of little marks on the surface as we go round. A lot of it is kind of to be expected for a car of this age. Some bit of curbing on that alloy, but nothing much. The back bumper really needs a respray. You can see I've been working on this area trying to get these scratches out. There's nothing much you can do about them. There's also a bit here. It really needs to be resprayed. You'll also see this rear light fits really badly at the moment. The auto electricians resolved a problem on the rear lights for me. So they've refitted it for me, but it just doesn't fit as well as it once did. But it is in. The rear spoiler's up at the moment, and that does come up and down as it should. Light scratch along there, nothing too hideous. Little scratch there, another scratch there. And then on this side, this is still, although it's the rear arch, this is still the back bumper. There's a bit of damage there that's just been touched in. So really the worst damage on the car, the only really significant damage on the car is on this rear bumper, and that could all be dealt with for probably 200 or 300 quid if it bothered you in a big way. You'll see the windows have been tinted. I had that professionally done. That's been done to Audi privacy glass spec. So it's not been sort of murdered out or anything, but it certainly makes the car a bit more comfortable and gives it a bit of a nicer look. What else have we got here? So lots of stone chips on there. The bonnet's filled with stone chips, and there's a few little marks on the bumper at the front, but nothing to get yourselves too excited about. Now one other thing which is really annoying is this window rubber. You can see that's sort of been gouged somehow. I don't know what's happened to that. I'm sure that's not a big job for someone to just pop that out and replace, but I don't have the skill set or the time to do it myself. See, we've got the new Android head unit there, which has got wireless Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It's a brilliant piece of kit. I'll put a link to the video on that up in the corner of the screen. There is a back seat in here, but like most Mark II Audis, it's kind of pointless unless you're a 4-year-old really. Going round to the boot, this has all been repaired. The common issue on these Mark II Audis is that just gives up the ghost. That's all been repaired, and as you'll see, we've now got an aftermarket amp wired in here under the floor. The installer's also put in a little plug, so you can just unplug that if you want. This is just Velcro down with some fairly heavy duty Velcro, but that's easy, very, very easy to get out and work on if need be. This all needs a good hoover, unfortunately. Another thing to mention is they replaced a front light bulb for me, and again the light hasn't been refitted very well. That did fit perfectly before. That just needs a bit of an adjustment, but I don't have the tool to do it. Just need a really long, I think it's a Torx 30 screwdriver, but anyone can do that knows what they're doing in about 3 minutes. You could probably even get that done in Halfords. This is the worst of the alloys. There's quite a bit of curbing on this one. Again, it's an old car, it's cheap. How bothered are you? See, the glove box now works. It has got a little scrape on the lid there. And there are a few marks and stuff on the interior. It's by no means perfect condition, but it's perfectly okay. I've probably personally got 30 hours of labour in this car. It's all been machine polished. The paint was in a terrible state when I got it. Although there's still some damage on the paint that ideally you would get repaired, the majority of it has come up really well, and in the right light, which today isn't, you really get that sort of metallic flake coming back out into the paint, and it's taken years off it. It really has. I spent hours on the interior. The interior was absolutely filthy. There's a separate video on that interior clean that I'll chuck a link to up in the corner, and it's now really quite respectable in here. The stereo system was a disaster, so the stereo just didn't have any sound coming from it, and I sort of thought it'll either be a fuse or also the cigarette lighter didn't work. So I thought it's probably fuses or a control unit or an amp. We changed control units. I spent a lot of money on trying to get the issue diagnosed, and in the end we just decided to cut our losses and basically completely rewire a new system in. So we've not using any of the car systems as such. The stereo comes on and turns off with the car as it should, but it's using a separate amp. It's not going through sort of the main sort of control units of the car and what have you. It's a more or less a separate system that's working in conjunction with the car. That stereo there's worth about 350 quid, something like that. That's gone in, it's amazing. There's a link to it up there. So from where the car was to where it is now, it's come on miles, it come on in leaps and bounds, but it still needs to be finished off. I mean, if you want to get this car looking pristine, there's one or two alloys you might want to refurbish. You might even want to do a colour change on them. There's plenty you can do with it because it's quite a good blank canvas. It's got service history. It hasn't been to Audi dealers all the time, but it has been serviced. The mileage makes perfect sense. I've done a full vCheck on the car, which I'll put a link to that report for this car in the video description, so you can go and check it out for yourself. But everything is as it should be with that. What it hasn't had done is the automatic gearbox service. That was done at 38,000 miles or something, whenever it should have been done, but it hasn't been done since. The car's now got 86,293 on the clock as I record this. So that automatic gearbox service, I think, should have been done about 8 or 10,000 miles ago, and it hasn't been done. Gearbox works brilliantly, but when you get it up to temperature and you're pulling away from a junction or popping it into reverse, just that initial second or two, it just is a bit jerky. Now, as that happens only when it's up to heat, that just stinks of an oil issue to me, like it needs the oil changed, and you need to use the correct oil for it as well. It's very important the correct oil is used. That will clear 9 out of 10 of those issues. If that doesn't work, the next stage is that you get an auto electrician to come out. They usually charge you between 40 and 60 quid, and they will do something called adaptations for you with the VW vCheck software or something like that, or they can just put it back to basic settings. What that does, the basic settings just puts it back to stage 1, and the gearbox actually learns sort of your driving style. Over the next couple of thousand miles that you're driving it, it will learn how you drive, and it will kind of set itself accordingly. Or you have the adaptations done, and that sort of does some of that for you, and it just allows the gearbox to understand that there's been a bit of wear and tear now, and it needs to look for certain things in slightly different places. I've read lots about this online. I'm convinced it just needs a good oil and filter service, and probably one of those things done to it. All in all, that should probably cost you about 250 quid, even with the adaptations being done. And the other thing is, the car's not due a cam belt until 115,000 miles, but it's the original cam belt on a 2007 car. So I think it would be bananas not to do it. But obviously that would be up to the potential buyer if they want to do that or not. But you're looking at about 450 quid to get that done with the water pump and everything else that you always do when you do a cam belt. But I'll take the car out for a spin in a moment and just have a little whiz in it. It goes like an absolute train. It goes up and down through the gears like a dream. Absolutely no issues anywhere else. It's just when you've got it fully up to temperature, which might take you half an hour or something, you do feel that jerkiness when you first pull away and when you first put into reverse. To be honest, it's something I don't have to mention because you're probably never going to pick that up on a test drive, but I'm not that sort of bloke. I like to be upfront with everything. I like to give you my honest opinion of what the issue is and what it will probably take to resolve it. So you can see I've just popped it into reverse there. It's got no issues whatsoever, and then I'll just pull away here. It's totally fine. I said the issue only arises when it gets up to temperature, which is what makes me think that's an oil issue because it's heat related. Aircon works really well, so I'm going to treat myself to a bit of it, so apologies if there's any background noise. I'm just going down the bumpiest road known to man that's got a speed bump about every 50 yards because that's something I like to do in a car with a firm suspension. It is very firm suspension. It is a sports car, make no bones about it. It's a lively little beast and it handles like an absolute dream. So the result of that is you get a fairly stiff suspension. But this is the bumpiest road known to man, and as you can tell, it's not that bad. So I think I mentioned in the video for the stereo that when you turn the car on, even if the stereo's not on, you hear a little bit of a faint sort of static sound in the speakers, and that appears to be a shielding issue. So you either need some better shielding on the terminals for the amp, or possibly like the RCA cable that goes from the amp to the stereo needs to be a better quality one, possibly, you know, with better shielding inside the cable. That's all it is. There's nothing wrong with the stereo, nothing wrong with anything else. And obviously as soon as you start playing music, you don't hear that anyway. It's one of those things I'd sort if I was keeping the car, and I won't because I'm selling it. There's so much traffic today. I'm filming this on Bank Holiday Monday on the outskirts of Bournemouth, which is probably not a sensible thing to do, but I'm not always a sensible person. So this car's got a very, very fruity exhaust note, so I've just popped the window down and hopefully you'll pick some of that up. I don't know if you will, but... Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! When you drive this thing, it just puts a smile on your face. The way it performs for a car of its age and its price, in fairness, is absolutely brilliant. It's just such a laugh to drive. Chuck it around like an absolute hooligan and it just loves it, it soaks it up. And equally, you can poodle along at 20 miles an hour and it seems reasonably happy doing that. But it's a real driver's car, and people that say they're hairdressers' cars and all the rest of it have obviously never driven one. It's a brilliant piece of kit, it's a brilliant driver's machine. So I bought this car from Manchester, and on the drive back from Manchester, I got almost 40 to the gallon out of it, and it's a 2-litre petrol turbo automatic, and I got, you know, almost 40 mpg from it, which I thought was really good. I've hardly driven it, to be honest, because this was supposed to be part of a big project. The idea was get it restored, do all the video content, getting it restored, and then go and drive it, and obviously do a very long drive over to Germany, take it around the Nürburgring, drive it back and do a little series on that. Of course, sponsors pulled out, everything else has happened since, and unfortunately it wasn't meant to be. I just use it for literally taking it out for a quick blast every once in a while, nothing more than that. It really is a lovely car, and I hope it goes to someone that is going to look after it and restore it and do all the bits that I would have liked to have done if I'd had the budget or time, and possibly now inclination. Hope you enjoyed that one, folks. If you are interested in buying the car, genuinely interested in buying the car, you can send me an email. It's jim@notaguru.co.uk. Please follow me on social media everywhere you can, and please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't already done so.